What's up, guys? It's Greg here with another MyoBrain education. This one's going to be a little bit of a review over a sleep podcast. This was a Joe Rogan podcast I listen to quite often, and the guest name was Matthew Walker. So the total podcast, I think, was like 2 to 2.5 hours in length. So if you want to dive deep into this stuff, I'd recommend going and listening to the podcast on Joe Rogan's podcast. This video, I'm going to go over four detailed, or I guess four really general things he outlined in the podcast you can do to improve your sleep. So very actionable things, a little bit of the why behind what he says, but more just you could put these into place right now to improve your sleep. I forget which episode number it was, but I did do another educational video on the effects of sleep deprivation. So I'll probably post that into the notes of this YouTube video if you want to check that one out. I want to say it was somewhere like in the 20s. So that can be a good sleep podcast, or sorry, a sleep video to watch along with this one. Okay, so again, four things, and let's jump into it. So the first thing he mentioned in the podcast is, again, simple things you can do to improve your sleep is going to be regularity of both when you go to bed and when you wake up. He didn't give too many specifics on exactly how regular you need to be, as far as, like, for instance, I kind of do like ideally I would do like a 10 to 7 going to bed wake time. It's usually more something like 11 to like 7:30-ish is kind of what I typically do. So I'm sure there's some sort of wiggle room here. If I typically go to bed at say 11, maybe how late is too late? I probably want to say it's within like half an hour if I had to guess of either side of that. So that's what I try to shoot for. If ideally I'm trying to go to bed at 10 is like my average, then somewhere between like 9:30 and 10:30. And same thing, if I wake up on 7 on average, try to wake up at 6:30 to 7:30 would be ideal. He even mentioned, and I've heard this in a few other podcasts with some sleep experts, that even on the weekends, trying to hold this as much as possible. That may not be realistic for most people, especially maybe some younger clients that I work with that want to just go out and have some fun on the weekends. But there is some good data showing that even 1 or 2 nights a week of doing something like, a 1 to 10 a.m., if you're typically doing like a 9 to 5 a.m., a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. sleep schedule, this is normal. And you go and do like a 1 to 10 a.m. On the weekends once or twice, that can really disrupt your sleep and your recovery quite a bit. So again, the first thing he mentioned, so probably the most important thing, would be regularity of when you go to bed and when you wake up, okay? Second thing is going to be minimize light. I think most of us have heard of this by now. There's apps on your computer. There's now, if you have an iPhone, like a daylight setting you could put on there to make sure that your blue light sort of diminishes over time when you get deeper and deeper into the night. So try to minimize that light would be ideal. He put a standard of no screens 1 hour prior to bed, and also mentioned in the podcast, I think this was in a different spot, but for every, I think they did a study on one group of people reading. So if they went to bed at 10 p.m., one group read in a book from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. The second group read on their iPad from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Again, that would be like on your phone, on your laptop, whatever, just light in your face. And the group that was on their screen, as opposed to who was reading an hour prior to bed, had a 3-hour later release of melatonin. Melatonin is that hormone that kind of signals to our body that we're going to be tired. Many of us will take a melatonin supplement in order to increase that melatonin before you go to bed. So again, this would not be ideal to have a screen right before you go to bed. That's a pretty big magnitude of 3 hours delayed of the melatonin release, okay? It also mentioned kind of dimming and or turning off other lights around your house. So not just the actual light that's in your room, right? So say if you're sitting like in your living room, but also turn like your kitchen light off or your hallway light off, or dimming those lights could just create like a more sleepy vibe for you late in the night. The third thing he mentioned was to keep it cool in your bedroom wherever you're sleeping. So he mentioned a cool fact here that it takes your brain dropping 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to actually cause your body to sleep. So this can be sometimes while it takes some people longer to fall asleep than others, because some people's brain temperature will decrease faster or slower than others, okay? So kind of fun fact there. He also mentioned sleeping semi-naked. I'm not exactly sure what constitutes that, but less clothes being better, because obviously the clothes are going to trap heat on your body. And this actually wasn't from him, this 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but for some reason, I heard this somewhere. I want to say maybe Kelly Starrett said it, of like the ideal sleep temperature. So I may look up some more research on the actual exact temperature. It's probably going to be variable of what you feel comfortable at, right? But probably 68 is a good starting place for a lot of people to set like their air conditioners or whatever their room temperature is, okay? So again, keep it cool. I think a lot of people are very aware of this. Fourth thing is going to be either a hot shower or bath before bed. It may seem a little bit counterintuitive to take a hot shower if we're trying to get very cool prior to bed, but he mentioned because of vasodilation, sort of the opening up of your veins and your arteries, this sudden decrease of your core body temperature occurs. So you're in say a hot shower, it's obviously very, very hot, your body temperature increases, you get out of the shower and immediately it just plummets. And that big contrast going from very, very hot to now very, very cold in your core body temperature helps your body get cool right before bed. That's it, guys. So again, this was the summary of the Matthew Walker Sleep Podcast on Joe Rogan's podcast. If you want all the information, obviously I'd go and listen to the full thing, or do an Audible or buy Matthew Walker's book. Again, I believe it's called Why We Sleep. I'll be doing that to get some more information. If I have any more little nuggets for you guys, I'll definitely share that. And it's a good kind of summary overall of the podcast. What I think a lot of my clients would get from it is not that sleep is important. A lot of people, I think, understand that sleep is pretty important, but the magnitude in which it's important, right? How much maybe better you'd be as an athlete if you slept half an hour more per night, as opposed to like did an extra set of back squats or did 20 minutes of skill work or whatever, right? So I think it puts into perspective how much you may be missing out on your health, your fitness goals, if you're not getting this. So it's not just like sleep's important, but like here's what you can lose if you're not getting X amount of hours of sleep. So again, I recommend checking it out on your commute to work or whatever. It's a really good educational podcast. So that's it, guys. If you have any questions for me, like always, just let me know. And until next time, thank you.